welcome to my Flagstaff home. Today I'm going to talk about my August garden. Today is August 31st. I went out yesterday and did some filming. Hello, Vanessa. My dog's coming to join us. And did some filming. August isn't usually a great month for us for gardening. It is when everything is really like things have grown and it's time to harvest things, but also other plants just kind of start saying we're done for the summer. Where I live, it is a cold climate. Our growing season is 103 days to be exact. We have a 50% chance of frost up through June 15th, and we have a 50% chance of frost again at about September 22nd or 3rd or something like that. So not a very long growing season. It means that most of my tomatoes get harvested green, and I'm gonna do a video that kind of shows you what I do, because we don't just eat green tomatoes till they're coming out our ears. We actually have a special way to ripen them up, not just putting them in a window. That's fake ripening. So anyway, we are getting ready to be done with the growing season. I mean, today is August 31st, so we have 3 weeks left of the growing season. So some of the plants are sort of starting to look peaked, and yeah. But then I've got some other things growing like crazy. So let me go ahead and take you outside so you can see. So here's one of those pots that I did with the thrillers, spillers, and fillers that has really grown a lot since I planted it. Here's another one of those with a few different flowering plants in them. The thrillers are kind of starting to die off. Here's another little section of potted plants here that look really nice. You can see that my yard, we try to keep this looking really natural because we've got forest behind us here. So we have rock and stuff around here, around the porch area, and then out beyond the rock, we just have natural forest grass. We take a weed whacker to it a couple times during the summer, but we have a lot of wildflowers growing back here now, and so that's growing and looking really nice. This plant that I had in my tub here, you may have seen it in the video for my flea market garden. And this one, the red flowers, the petunias, have sort of seemed to, they either died off or they just aren't blooming right now. But you know, we're getting down to chilly temperatures at night now. We're going into the 40s at night, so things are starting to die. We really only have about 3 weeks left of our growing season. This is my flower garden. It actually did its best at the end of June and into July, and while there are still a few things blooming in here, you can see my bee balm over here is blooming. There's most of the things are sort of deciding that they're done. And then over here I have a strawberry plant that, believe it or not, is only just now putting out flowers. It was really slow to get started growing, but we still have some time, so hopefully I'll get some strawberries. This is a loofah plant that, look at this thing. It just climbed and climbed and climbed and climbed and climbed this tree. But for some reason, I had tons of ants on this plant, and it seemed that they were keeping things from growing, like the loofah wasn't growing. I don't know what happened. I thought maybe I had aphids, because ants typically will be where aphids are, but never found any. And I released ladybugs, and they were interested in other places in my yard, but not this. So I don't know why the ants were so attracted to this plant, but it didn't give me any loofahs. But I sure do love how it climbed the tree. I mean, look at that. It's just ridiculous. It's probably like, what, 15 feet high? Crazy. And then over here, my shade garden that always seems to have sun on it when I'm showing it to you guys. but it's the afternoon. I guess I'm always filming in the afternoon, but most of the day this garden gets shade, and so things did pretty well. Had blossoms throughout the summer. That big tall stalk there had blossoms on it a week ago, and so that one, it did okay. It didn't spread as much as I thought it would. This is only year 2 of this garden, but it did okay. And then if we come over, well, let me show you over here. This is that garden ladder that I did, and the flowers on that are growing really nicely, and so looking very pretty. This pot right here has a Gerbera daisy plant in it, and it bloomed a couple of times this summer. Okay, here's one of my garden beds. My peas and snap peas. Here are the snap peas, and then these 2 beds back here have peas. Those, well, they have a little powdery mildew on them right now, but you can see that a lot of them have dead leaves, and I think that my cat, and there's a few dead plants in there, if you can see those. There's one like right there. Anyway, I think my cat, Mary, has decided that she likes peeing in the peas. So I think she's caused some of those things to die. I have some squash plants here. This is a cucumber. Never really took off. I got 1 cucumber growing on it, but that's about it. I have a couple of, I thought I had a couple of little ones under there, but I don't. This squash plant has given me a few zucchinis. This one has just started to give me some patty pans. That's kind of a small one. This one over here has a cucumber on it. This one, these just didn't grow very big in this bed. And this one right here, this is round zucchini, if you've ever heard of that. But the plant was so small, it never really took off. I'm not sure why. Nor did this other cucumber thing that was supposed to climb. My horseradish plant is huge. My other 2 squash plants, they've gotten some powdery mildew on them, which I've treated with a copper fungicide, but I think that's why some of the leaves are yellow. This has given me several patty pans. There's a nice big one there, and then I've got some smaller zucchini growing back on that plant, and then this one right here has a big zucchini and a couple of others that are growing in there. This one doesn't currently have any on it, but I've harvested quite a few off of that. These are my potato plants that are looking like they're dying, but that's what happens when they're ready, when they're getting ready to harvest. So these are all just going to turn yellow and look very dead, and then I dump the buckets over and harvest the potatoes. And then over here, this is my tomato jungle, and you may have seen let's see, did I do a video on that? No, I didn't. I have a blog post over on myflagstaffhome.com where I did a post about blossom end rot, and that's where the end of the tomato starts to rot, and it's due to either inconsistent watering or a lack of calcium. And I determined mine was from a lack of calcium, so I treated that. I have lots of tomatoes. So thankfully, even though I lost a bunch of them from blossom end rot, I still just have tons. I've harvested some that have turned red on the vine. You can see I've got some under there that are turning. They're just, I have hundreds. There's just a whole bunch. And then in here, I have these cherry tomatoes, and I've harvested some of those. Let me see if there are any ripe ones back here. Yeah, there are some. Let me get in here for you. See way back there? There's a little cherry tomato right there. These are black cherry tomatoes. So I'm gonna have to pull these off in a few weeks, because if it gets down to where we're gonna have freezing temperatures at night, then I could lose everything if I don't harvest everything in time. So yeah, there you go. Let me give you a little scan of my yard. There you go. Oh, this is worth mentioning. This is a raspberry bush. I think I might have mentioned it in my last garden video. And I planted it 6 years ago, and it never got a blossom ever until this year. And we got quite a few raspberries. So that was really nice. In the meantime, I planted a couple more raspberry bushes, this little one here. And so that one should give us some in the future. And then this is a blackberry bush that never really does much for me. It's got one little blackberry growing there, but it's got a couple, I guess, right here. It just never really does much for me. I'm not sure why it doesn't grow very well. But so this, oh, in this big space right here, we're putting in a garden shed that I'm gonna paint real cute. So I'll show you that when we get that in. And that is the, I wanted to show you, this is a basket of tomatoes that I pulled off the plants just a couple of days ago. I was a little nervous about the blossom end rot I got, and I didn't want any of these to get it before I had a chance to harvest them. They will ripen up just fine, and these San Marzano tomatoes I'm gonna actually turn into sun-dried tomatoes. You actually do it in the oven. These are my black crims, 2 of them that ripened up. Most of the tomatoes that I harvest here in this home, in this town where I live, I harvest green because they just don't have enough time to turn red on the vine. And so I put them on a rack in the garage, and then as they ripen, we eat them then. So I'll do another video about how I harvest tomatoes here. But that is a pretty good size basket that I harvested already, and there are still, gosh, I'd be surprised if there were less than 200 more outside. So I'm going to be canning a lot here pretty soon. Canning and doing the sun-dried tomato thing and all of that. So, and of course, I will show you that when I do it. Well, that was my garden. I've been thinking, I always am thinking at the end of a growing season, what worked, what didn't work. I have a section of a binder. If you've seen my, oh no, it's on my other channel. I have another channel called Busy Being Jen, and I'll link it in the space below. And in that one, I have a home management binder, and one of the sections is a gardening section. It's got a free printable that I provide on my website for that channel as well. And so I keep track of the stuff that does well and that, you know, doesn't do well. So for example, the loofah. Last year, I started it inside and transplanted it to that pot. And it didn't get big enough. It didn't climb the tree like it did this year. And didn't produce loofahs. So this year I started it indoors in that pot. And then when the weather got nice, then I put it outside. And you could see how huge and tall it grew. But I don't have any loofahs. I mean, I get little tiny things, and then they sort of die off, and it's gotta be whatever those ants are doing. I will probably try it again next year. I love the fact that it grew up the tree. I think that's very pretty, and so even if I never get a loofah sponge out of this thing, I will enjoy the fact that it winds up the tree. So I'll do that again next year and hope I don't get ants, and then maybe I'll actually get a loofah. And they're actually like the loofahs you use in the shower. Yeah, so yeah, I'll do that even though I didn't get a harvest from that. My tomatoes, of course, I will always do. I did 3 San Marzanos this year. Hopefully that will give me enough to, I like to make sun-dried tomatoes, actually do them in the oven. Then once you do that, you can freeze them, and then I'll do a video on that later, but they're great to have throughout the winter. So we'll see if I get enough, and next year I may do more of those. Yeah, and so I really liked everything that I grew so far in my tomato gardens. Everything will rotate. It'll be in a different place next year. And I may throw in the towel on cucumbers. Haven't had a lot of luck with them the last few years, so I may say forget it. I don't know. I'm always wishful thinking now. And then the squash, you know, some of my squash did really great, and some of them stayed really small. I have no idea why, but I've had good luck with them overall, so I'll keep doing that. The peas, it was great. We had nice crop. We're still getting some peas in there, snap peas too, but the cat is peeing in the peas. I find little holes dug up, and she's peeing in there, and that's why she's killing them. So I believe what I'm gonna do next year is she's not doing that in the other garden beds because there's too much stuff growing in there, so she can't really get in there and do that. But I think what I'm gonna do when I rotate, the peas are gonna go into the next set of garden beds over. I think I'm gonna put chicken wire on the ground, and then the peas will grow up through that, and she won't like the feel of that on her feet. So I think that's what I'm gonna try to keep her out of the garden. She didn't do that last summer, but this summer, yeah, I guess, well, she's a cat. But okay, so that's enough. Yeah, I think all in all, it was a good season for me. I have, you know, I have lots of stuff that's still growing out there, and pretty soon I will be madly picking it all to beat the first frost. And then it will be all about, you know, canning and preserving this stuff so I can have these wonderful flavors throughout the winter in the food we eat. But one of the things I am going to do, and I'll show you this when I start it, is when the tomatoes are done and we're getting to some freezing temperatures at night, I will yank those all out, pick all the tomatoes, and I will yank all the tomato plants out of there, and then I'm going to plant that whole garden bed with spinach. And spinach loves cold weather. I've even gone out and dug snow out of the way to harvest spinach. So yeah, they love cold temperatures. They're not gonna love super, super, super cold temperatures over a long period of time, but they really don't mind cold. So I'm gonna do that, and hopefully we'll get a nice little crop of greens for the fall and early winter. So anyway, thanks you guys. I hope that was interesting for you to see. I will be back with more updates on my garden, and I hope you'll follow along on my Flagstaff home. If you're not currently subscribed, just hit that button and YouTube will let you know when I upload new videos. Take care, you guys. Bye-bye.